everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Designer's Den. I am super excited today to welcome back my first repeat guest, my good friend John Connor Self, also known as the Healer DM, who has made a delicious cup of tea.
I have, yes. I was gifted a tea assortment for Christmas, and my family celebrates Christmas, and it's a delightful peach herbal tea, and I sprinkled some fresh ground cinnamon into it, and it smells great. And I wish I could. There are certain things like I love DMing, but there are certain things I just cannot adequately describe, and it's the smell of a fresh tea with fresh ground cinnamon in it. There's just something about it that smells like family. So,
And so, got off to a little delayed start because we decided that we all needed a beautiful cup of tea, and mine is currently way too hot to drink. So we are excited today to talk to you a little bit about Connor's beard. Somebody already wants to know. And more importantly, about some of the stuff that Connor's been up to since he first came on back in, I think it was November. Because yeah, it's been a wild little while, and a lot of stuff has
mhm,
happened. So
yeah.
specifically, since then, a little project that Connor and I worked on has premiered, and I wanted to give Connor the chance to kind of talk a little bit from his perspective about some of the design philosophy that went into that and what kind of helped shape um, our project, which some of you probably already know, is the Terror in 10 Towns epic, the season 10 second epic. Great Knucklehead Rally was the first.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, because everyone's heard my thoughts on it, and I've been administering it for administrating it. Administering sounds
Administering it, I think, might be it. I don't know.
it I've been doing the admin work for it.
Yeah, you have.
For Baldwin Games for our several run throughs of it, several run throughs, and so lots of people adjudicating. I like that, Joe. I like that. Joe here, Zombie Joe, with the vocabulary that I am desperately missing today. But so a lot of people have heard my thoughts. But Connor is a very busy man and has been unavailable to do all of that, so hasn't really shared his side of the story. Not that I've not been sharing it.
Oh, oh, thanks again, Jenny,
Of
for
course.
inviting me on to talk with you again. I always adore any chance that we can chat about whatever it is. So I will I will try to do a repeat appearance justice. Um, I in case for those of you that are tuning in that maybe haven't known, um, we are Ginny and I worked together in secret for the better part of the first year of COVID isolation to create a shared story, which was the DDEP 10-1 Terror in 10 Towns for those of you that enjoy Adventurers League, and at some point in the future, those of you that don't necessarily enjoy Adventurers League but want to run it in your at home for your friends, you'd be able to do that as well. That's down the road. But for now,
Not very
but
far down the road, but down the road.
down the road, um, the telling of this story. Well, so we started with a pitch from the ever delightful Travis. He gave us a basic story pitch, right, which was tell a story of an attack on the southern half of 10 Towns.
Hmm.
And let's see if you can make it an animal attack.
Hmm. And the
Um,
and
and
the and the towns have to interact with one another.
and yeah, and then force the towns to have to interact with one another. So that was pretty much our guideline. It was pretty wide open, leaving Ginny and I to like, okay, what kind of story do we want to tell? And So Jenny and I did the first thing a lot of authors do, which is what resources do we have that have information on this? Right? What resources do we have? And there was some information from the book that later became Rime of the Frost Maiden that we were allowed to use, but we had to really just do a lore dive, right?
What Connor's trying to say is that we bought every single book related to the Crystal Shard trilogy, and fortunately, I had access to Alan Patrick's bookshelf.
Hmm.
So he had the Crystal Shard adventure from the D&D Next playtest.
Right,
So I was able to grab that really quickly, whereas Connor had to pay someone on the internet to send it to him
which was
via
right really expensive.
via mail.
Yeah, it was via mail and it took forever. It was really expensive too, because that particular story is in demand. People wanted that story even before Rhyme came out. People wanted a story set there, so it was cool. We used those books, and then we're like, okay, now we've got this information. What do we want to do? And that's where we started talking about themes, adventure themes. Um, so, if anybody who has read this adventure probably knows, there's an entire section in there dedicated to theme, to adventure theme, an entire sidebar about it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, because knowing what kind of story you want to tell is pretty dang important. So that's where we started, and we started with let's tell a story about unity and the lack thereof, and how in the face of an impending disaster, people need to pull together to stop it. Even if people don't want to, we need to do that. And I mean, it was a really pertinent theme for the time
It was
because it,
super relevant to current events at the time because everyone needed to band together. Otherwise, we were going to be in isolation.
right, yeah. So we really leaned hard into that theme, um, and and tried to tell a story where the heroes uh, do get to experience conflict, but the most important conflict isn't the conflict at the end. It's that interpersonal conflict that you have trying to solicit the help of people who are like, why should I help? What should I do? So that's where we started with that. Lots of great inspiration
Mm-hmm.
for that adventure. Lots of great inspiration for it. So
And for those of you who've had a chance to play it so far, and those of you who've had a chance to DM it, you'll note that the very beginning of it, and this isn't really spoilery for anyone who hasn't done any of this thing yet, but the very beginning of it, well, the first couple of hours of it, give you a lot of freedom to interact with the four towns there nearest East Haven, which is going to be under attack. Um, and so you really get to kind of dive in as far as you want to how those towns are, how those people are, what their motivations are, and really just kind of what drives them. And and that kind of really leads to a lot of very interesting scenarios. I know I, for one, have definitely had a lot of people who get to good mead, and there are some very creative um, mead centered solutions. Sometimes we weaponize the mead. Sometimes we use mead as bribery. Sometimes we teach them how to make new alcohol using honey. Sometimes we use the mead as a social lubricant to just sit around and get to know one another, in character in the game.
mhm,
And,
yeah.
by getting to know one another, you develop that trust. Um,
Mhm,
and that's just like one example of some of the many variations on this um that I've seen. Yeah, I do remember the honey mead fire bombs. um that one, the first time I saw it was like, okay, weaponized mead. I wouldn't waste it like that personally, but desperate times, I suppose. And so, really gives the DMs and gives the players a lot of freedom to kind of
mhm,
go into the themes of season 10, which are kind of a little bit horrific.
They can be rather horrific, but we wanted a story that, at least in the beginning, was less horrific and more, for lack of a better word, human.
Hmm.
Right? A story that's incredibly human, as as any of us could testify from just watching current events. We've got a populace, and not in every nation, but in many nations around the world, that we're very divided on so many issues, um, and it can be hard to find that common ground to come together and work together. So it was really nice to tell a story like that, an inspirational and an aspirational story. Um, and so yeah, I think that was maybe my favorite part. And you're absolutely right, Jenny. When we opened up this story at the very beginning, we wanted to give the players a very open playing field in which to create and tell their own stories. And so the players are given a huge amount of leeway to direct their own actions in the combat. And the DMs are given a wide degree of latitude to tell the kind of story that they want to tell.
Hmm.
And when you have a DM that adores improv, or players that really enjoy that loose framework to tell the stories that they want to tell, you can end up with really magical experiences around the table. And I've heard that repeatedly over and over. Lots of comments like, "I really enjoyed that. Is there any way we can double the length of that that
Yeah,
section right
yeah.
there, or revisit it in the future? Those stories that we tell." And it means that every time that a group of players sit down to play this adventure, it can feel so different
Hmm.
than every other time. Um, the replayability is huge, but the types of story you can tell, that's a very
Yeah, I mean,
wide array of choices.
you know how the overarching story arc is going to go, but every time you sit down with a new group of people, you're going to have a new experience. And we also provided you um, some NPCs with a lot of depth to them.
Hmm.
We got to model one of our favorite pop culture icons right at the very beginning, and then we also got to utilize some lore and a little bit of like history from the real world analogs of like Icewind Dale. And
Hmm.
I know Connor was greatly helpful with that in making sure that we had the right tone for talking about native peoples.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
the analogs in Icewind Dale to native peoples of the Americas, and native peoples of Asia, there's so much there, and we wanted to do honor, um, to the source material, rather than just utilize it for our reading. That we were so powerfully opposed to doing that. We just wanted to tell a meaningful story there. So when we created Takoda, um, that was um, that was an incredibly meaningful thing for me personally, um, given my native ancestry, to have representation of queer native voices,
mhm, mhm.
and to put it there in a way that does respect to the culture rather than trivializing it or tokenizing it.
Sorry, Connor's menagerie is
Mm, the
has
dogs.
has an opinion on the matter as well.
Yeah, and I can mute it a little bit.
Oh, you're fine. Um, but yeah, so we definitely did all of that, and we took a lot of care. I, nobody's ever mad when puppies interrupt you. You're all right. Everybody's chiming in. Woof woof puppers. um, but um, but yeah, so kind of working on that and being able to kind of take all of this stuff and everything, and then I know personally, um being able to be part of the team that has run, well, not the premiere, because the Canadians at Unite the Faction got the honor of that and did a wonderful job with the premiere.
Yeah,
um,
I got to be there. They did a great job.
but doing multiple runs of it with Baldman Games for the um I, I guess post premieres. We've run it one, two, three, four, five, six times I want to say, and we're going to be running it again this coming month. And just being able to bring that story to people and being able to encourage them, specifically, Krishna and I really lean into the role play part by we run a Twitch stream for all of the updates and everything, and we encourage tables to report in like what they're doing, put a cinematic twist on it, like tell us, like I believe it was um, the 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 Minnesota Minis or something. I can't remember all the team names. There have been some really good ones. Three Kobolds in a Trench Coat has come up several times. But Three Kobolds in a Trench Coat have stormed into Dugan's Hole, and they've captured the love of these once cold people who don't like outsiders, and they've convinced them that you gotta do good if you're gonna expect good from your neighbors. And so it's just like things like that, and them reporting in like we've gone and we've sang them an epic tale of poetry and friendship and neighborliness, and you're like, everyone's just reporting in these things, and we're encouraging them to put out your most cinematic updates, and that really kind of pushes people into the role playing, because uh, everyone wants their cool stuff to be on the Twitch. You want to be like, show us what our team did. Our team's doing stuff. We're doing good. And everyone. There hasn't really been a single table yet, who's just been like, I'm just gonna roll some skill checks if that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, because we kind of want to, encourage people to think beyond like, what do I need to roll? As a matter of fact, like honestly, you could run the first hour and 45 minutes without rolling dice at all.
Mm-hmm. You
Um,
can.
you're definitely gonna need dice in the end. Um, that's the bit where the Canadians wanted to call it TPK in 10 towns.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a challenge, but the when we had tried to create when we tried to take inspiration for that final sequence, we really pulled it heavily from TV shows and movies such as MASH and Saving Private Ryan. We did not want to glorify war. We absolutely did not. We didn't want to glorify it. We wanted to make it as terrifying and
Traumatic. It's
yeah,
traumatic for
and
the people there.
dramatic and heartless as it can be. And we didn't want people to be like, wow, I just participated in this war and it was great. We wanted folks to get a full difficult and even give an ending text where you're like, yes, we came out triumphant or didn't, but did anybody actually win in this? Does anybody actually win in war? And that's when we really leaned into TV shows like MASH.
Yeah.
So
I
if you
yeah.
like MASH,
Yeah, I mean, if you like old TV,
Mhm.
we've got some references. But aside from our Terror in 10 Towns epic, Connor and I have both been working on lots of other things throughout the pandemic. And
Right.
Connor, especially, has really leaned hard into pro DMing online. So through StartPlaying.games and other such avenues,
Mhm.
taking his unique brand of storytelling and delivering that out, not necessarily to the masses quite yet, but it'll get there. Um, and what has that experience really been like for you? Because I know that you're more about the narrative and about very, stories that are, humanity, capture the essence of humanity.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and I don't think I'm in any way unique in that, but and I've seen very much the same from stories I've seen you run, Jenny. So, but wanting to tell stories that resonate with people in an emotional way, on a personal level, um, and and so it's great to be able to do that in a form that encourages it, and to find people that are seeking it. There are so many different people. People play our RPGs for different reasons, right? And that's okay. Some people really really get into the strategic wargaminess of it. Some people like to get into the telling a funny story, or sharing a great time with your friends over tea or other beverages. And some people want an emotionally riveting story that resonates with them personally. So, in case you didn't notice, when Ginny and I lovingly crafted this last adventure, we tried to add a lot of that in. That the leaping points to make it emotionally meaningful for players in this an Adventurers League play. Um, the stories that I tell online that dive deeper into that, um, and I have to say it's been so wonderful.
Hmm.
It's been so wonderful. What's your experience been like sharing some of these stories with people online?
So, my particular experience so far with, because I've been doing the pro DMing as well, in addition to DMing for Baldwin Games, which is kind of pro DMing in and of itself, as you know, they kind of expect a pretty high level of DM, and there's certain expectations when you come to a Baldwin Games event. But I've been doing it through Start Playing as well. But my main focus on there is a little different than yours, Connor, in that I'm not necessarily, or well, I'm I'm open to people who already know how to play and who know what they want out of a game. But for the most part, my focus is on teaching people who've never played a role playing game how to play.
Hmm.
So I get families that want to play together for the first time. I've gotten several people who have thought about it, who loved it, who've maybe seen Critical Role or Community or Stranger Things, whatever it was that they saw this in. Um, and they're having a birthday, and so they're like, "I'm gonna hire a DM, um, so all my friends can play D&D for my birthday." I've done that for several groups, um, and it's really just been um, super like emotionally fulfilling, right? Teaching new players is always, it gives you kind of that high, right? Because
It
you know,
does.
like you can experience like their joy at stepping into this world for the first time and realizing that like it's whatever they want it to be. Like I had the one of the families I taught, like the son who booked it was about my age, and so his two parents, so they're, you know, older, and then his sister and I believe his brother-in-law, and so you know, we're learning how to do this and everything, and at the very beginning, like one of the first things they do is they find out, man, tents are expensive, 2 gold. So one of the first things they do while we're in the city is um rob the merchant. And they're like, we could just steal it, right? That's the thing we can do. We could steal it. You're a thief. You took a thief background. Just steal it. And then you know, the mom was a barbarian, and we got to a combat scene, and she was just like, I'm a barbarian. I have this thing called rage, right? So I can get like really angry and like Hulk smash. I'm like, that's exactly what you could do. And she's like, honey, hold my backpack. I gotta smash these goblins so they don't touch you.
Yeah.
You know, they just, you know, the joy. And I feel that's one of the good things about the pandemic so far, is being able to connect with like all these new people out there on these
Mhm.
new mediums, who have the time now, who are making the connection out there to be like, I want to do this new thing. Because it's a bonding experience with whoever they brought in to play. So you know, it brings everyone closer during a time when we are all very much separated.
Yeah.
Um, and so you know, I know I'm not the only one here. You and I aren't the only ones. Um, I know I saw Dark Plane DM, and that's pretty much all he's doing now is running D&D for people. And Graham is great at it. Um, Graham is super talented also because he's a theater person, which I'm not. So
Yeah,
I'm
Graham is super talented. Hey, Graham.
I'm just happy that people don't call me out on my bad accents. I will say, um, for anyone who knows me, this is probably not going to be a surprise, but there are an awful lot of NPCs in my world that have exceptionally superb Southern accents.
I wonder why.
I don't know. It's a mystery. Great mystery.
Yeah,
Um,
I get a lot. I do get some folks that are experienced, but some of my favorite groups to work with. There is one family that I work with. I don't want to give identifying information, But the father approached me and said, when I was a kid, I really enjoyed playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. Can you run my family and I through a shared story? They've never played before. Let's try it. And I'm like, okay, they have no exposure. I ran them through a delightful RPG called Quest,
Oh.
which is a fantasy RPG. It's very accessible, easy for kids to pick up because he and his wife had 3 sons going all the way down to age 12. And so making the game very accessible. And man, I really love telling stories with them. It's delightful. And I've had the chance to run a few D&D birthday parties. One of them was for a group of 10, 12-year-olds.
you
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 sh-
you have well, you do work in a school, so you are
I
at least
do.
used to dealing with a large number of children. Not necessarily at the same time usually in your line of
Oh,
work.
no, not, but I have learned a lot from practicing in classes and learning from my teacher colleagues. And so I used every skill I've ever seen them model, and they had a great time. I mean, it's always a treat, like you said, to teach new people
Yeah.
a passion for this
So
for this hobby.
when you're planning out these stories that you're gonna run for these groups, like how do you really start that? Like, do you have like questions that you ask them to kind of prepare ahead of time to gauge their personalities, or like what's your methodology for coming up with a story that is gonna fit the group?
Well, so for D&D birthday parties where they most certainly want to experience D&D, I have a very basic storyline that I've built that can be played with in any number of ways depending on the age and the size of the group. And it's meant to resonate with people as young as 10 and as old as 100. And the basic plot is your group is walking down the street and a mom comes out and says, you need to help me. My daughter's birthday party is going on in there. I hired entertainment, and all these clowns came, but then they started trashing my house, and I need
Oh
your help stopping them. Everybody seems to love this story because it dives right into the party aspect of it. And I mean, clowns. I mean, there aren't too many people that feel bad about hitting a clown. So it works pretty well. For the quest game, where the rules are a little bit more wide open and loose, I can provide even more freedom. But the type of story that you want to tell is it's determined by the players in the first session when they create their characters. When you create your character in quest, you use evocative words. When you create your setting, you use evocative words more than game stats. So there you go. That's how I do it. And it goes well. I think I saw one person in here who has played in a quest game I ran. So they can probably speak to it. But just how that process can
hmm
be.
yeah, and there's definitely kind of an art to being able to gauge your table and understand like what they want and um what they definitely don't want, more importantly.
Right. Yeah,
um
and that's why visual tools for me are so important. As a safety tool, I ask that all the players in my game have a camera that's working. It helps me. It helps the players so much to be able to see everybody's faces and see if they're enjoying the game or not enjoying the game, and it gives you an idea of what they like, so you can add more of it. What they don't like, so you can pull more of it out of the game,
mhm.
and really tailor that to people. I know it's not a comfortable thing for everybody, and I totally agree, understand, and respect that. Um, but at the tables that I run, we use that tool, and it works for us.
Yeah, definitely. And I also am a strong advocate for cameras on D&D online. I like to see your face. I feed off of your energy. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, every now and again, especially with the Baldman events, I get someone who signed up and they don't have a camera, and like I'm not gonna penalize them for that. Like, you know, we're still gonna play D&D. And then you also get the people who like they have their camera and then they're like, I'm gonna eat real quick, so I'm gonna turn my camera off so you don't see me shoveling food into my face.
Yeah, definitely something to cover in a session 0. Is it allowed to eat on, are you allowed to eat on camera? Is a question I ask every group that I run for.
Like, I don't care, but other people are, they feel self-conscious about eating on camera. Meanwhile, I'll just be over here like, uh-huh. Like, while they're doing a bit of exposition, I'll be like, just quietly, most quietly chewing my potato chip.
Uh-huh.
Super quiet because I'll mute myself, so extra quiet. But yeah. So so you've been doing a lot of that, and I'm sure that you've also been, if not necessarily writing a bunch of stuff yourself, thinking about it, maybe planning, maybe helping other people. So what else have you been up to?
So creation is never something that's far from my mind. I have put forward a couple pieces of storytelling that hopefully will work its way into anthologies soon. When they come out, I will definitely make sure that that followers on Twitter hear about those. I have some ideas percolating, writing for games like Quest. So telling stories in other games as well. And I really want to dip in and get a
Get a
Rime of
dungeon
the
craft.
Frost Maiden adventure out. I really do.
I'm waiting to see how your 3 kobolds in a trench coat make it through the world. As opposed
with a little bit of love, some happiness, maybe fried chicken.
the way to my heart.
Mm-hmm. Same, just a bit through the mouth. It really is.
Fried chicken.
Fried chicken.
So for those who might not be as familiar or maybe missed our first episode, let's kind of circle back around to like your general design philosophy and process. So when you're setting out and you're gonna create an adventure, D&D, Quest, Star Trek, what have you, Star Wars, any of these dozen or so systems that and love, you really kind of have some guiding principles, and you usually have like you start with an idea, if I recall, more so than like some people start with a really cool monster or a really cool NPC. I mean, obviously, exceptions to the case, but do you want to expound on that?
When I start my central theme, so many writers find it helpful to start with that central theme, and I start with a core idea, a principle, a concept, an emotion that really gets that. That's a funny comment. I don't even know what to say back to that. Yeah, I will answer you. I promise.
We're not ignoring you, Thomas. We're busy.
I'm busy right now. No, I start with that core concept. When we wrote Terror at 10 Towns, that core concept was unity, and the horrors of war. The horror element from Rime that we want to touch on, or that horror element we wanted to play on, was the horror of war. For the adventure before that, that I wrote for Adventurers League, King Obolt's Fist, it was written with anti-racism as the core theme. From every winter spring, I touched on rejuvenation and renewal. For the adventure I wrote for GameholeCon a few years back, that adventure I touched into Jungian archetypes, and it touched into everybody having the darkness that lurks in every single one of us was the core theme there. So I mean, we've got, I always try to start there. I love monsters as much as everybody, but my style really focuses in on the human element. That human resonance.
And somebody chimed in that, they think one of your great skills that really comes out in Quest is that you take the wacky stuff they come up with and you just run with it.
Mm.
And I think that's true. And if anybody has any weird or wacky questions that you want to ask Connor, now's the time because you got him captive. He can't go away.
I
Um,
can't. It's me and tea and a half-eaten container of Lady Gaga Oreos.
Made with real Lady Gaga?
I'm hoping not, but you never know. I mean, I'm not saying that they're made with Lady Gaga. I am saying though that I have not seen Lady Gaga since I've opened this container of cookies.
Well, I did at least learn that baby food isn't made with real babies.
Funny story. I love this. It's a great example of multiculturalism. Gerber baby food in the United States has traditionally included pictures of babies on its food. And when they began opening themselves up to international markets, they translated the language, but they sent them food, little containers of baby food with pictures of baby on it, to cultures where traditionally they include pictures of the food you're eating on it. So even though the language was translated, they're like, is this made with real babies? So it always pays to bring on multicultural consultants.
Yeah, bring on your culture consultant. Definitely A plus plus cannot recommend that enough. If you are
Right.
doing something, a culture, something that you do not have a lived experience with, it's worth the time, money, favors, whatever payment that you and that person have agreed upon. That's fair. To get that help, because like I know like I personally could not speak at all to the lived experiences of like people of color or indigenous people because we can all see, and there have been some streams where it's been more apparent than others. I am really white, exceedingly white. And so, and that's the thing that's actually becoming more and more common, thankfully. People are starting to realize that like you can't just write about like Asia and call it things like Oriental Adventures and just put
Yeah. But
you really need to get some consultants in there on that.
and if you can't get actual writers and creatives,
Yeah, preferably.
From those cultures to contribite to the project, which is even better, or to put them in positions of leadership.
Like the Islands of Sina Una did an excellent job with that. Their entire crew was of that culture.
Right.
And so and it really kind of shines through in everything that they've seen that I've seen so far of it. And I'm just waiting to get my grubby little paws on the book. I've ordered it.
Good. That's awesome.
I'm gonna have it eventually. I've ordered so many books in the last year, and they're gonna show up at my doorstep. At the doorstep at one of these. I don't even know where I've ordered them all to. My house, Alan's house, somewhere there will be books. I've been spending all my quarantine savings on supporting other people's RPG work, and I think that's another great thing that's kind of come out of pandemic is like people have had this time to really pour themselves into their passions and everything. Some of them have done it out of necessity because they need money, which I'll always say the best way to make a small fortune in tabletop games is to start with a large fortune, but there is still opportunities to make money enough to subsist on for some people, but that is obviously not the norm. But when you don't have a job, every little bit helps.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, it definitely pays not to trash on people for a side hustle that they need. I see way too much of that online, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I also kind of it's not really current trend, but the trend lately of like people like trashing on people who are writing stuff for fifth edition D&D because D&D has problems. D&D does have problems. It's not a perfect game. There were, culturally insensitive things in distant history, as well as in not so distant history,
Mhm.
Curse of Strahd. And
Mhm.
they are working on changing those things, but with a large company, they have a 2-year product life cycle. So like the changes we see now started 2 years ago. But like jumping on people and just like giving them grief for creating products for the community that buys things and therefore they know will help them most to pay their bills.
Right.
Like, I love indie games and I love indie games, but like for any given indie game, the market is minuscule.
Mhm. Sad but true.
And yes, we need to create for indie games and we need to give them more face time, but there's nothing wrong still with creating 5e supplements, creating 5e stuff. 5e is the hotness.
Mhm.
It is what it is. And 5e is
And
definitely the hotness if everybody saw Hasbro's earnings statements the other day.
oh yeah, yeah. Woof. Yeah, and you know what? It's I'm not gonna knock anybody for writing for a game that's popular. Just because it's popular doesn't mean it's bad.
Doesn't
It
mean
you
it's
know it
good.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily pull out some of the problematic things that are still there. But how are you supposed to write out the problematic things if the folks who care the most about writing out the problematic things leave the game? You know,
Bingo.
if we're I've got kids that want to play D&D with me. These are 10, 11, 12-year-old kids. Sometimes in groups of 10. And if I'm not there trying to show them a version of D&D that has the problematic things that pulled out of it, if I'm not there openly addressing the problematic things in my numerous runnings of Curse of Strahd, and either correcting them or not even correcting them, just confronting them,
Mm-hmm.
and saying, look, this is some bogus stuff here. You and I both know this. Let's confront this. You're the heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that want to tell that story, including that in there allows them not only to do it in the game, but also to reflect on their own life and how they might be able to confront some of the bogus stuff in our own lives. Because some of the things that are problematic in D&D, almost all of them come from the real lived experience.
Right.
That's where their root is.
And that's how these things end up in games, in our materials, not just games, but like in our
Mhm.
TV shows, in our books, in our music, in our everything. It comes from life. Art imitates life. And if the people who are trying to improve society and improve life um, don't make art that mimics that improvement, then yeah, we're gonna have problematic art.
Yeah.
And that's just
True.
kind of a sad fact of life. But we have a lot of people out there like Connor and like the hundreds and dozens. I was gonna say dozens, but much more than that, many more than that. People who care and who are taking these strides to um, make games inclusive, make games accessible,
Mhm.
make games diverse,
Yeah.
and I'm super excited to work with those people, to know those people, to add my own small um, little bit into one of the minority communities that I have. I have a couple minority communities, but add that into there. You know, I might be white, but I am a woman. I am queer. I am polyamorous, and those are all cultural things that aren't commonly encountered in our stuff. But those aren't things that are that uncommon in life. And I and let's go back to the more important and more relevant one that I've been experiencing lately. I have mental health issues, and those are things that need to be appropriately addressed in our media.
Mhm.
Um,
Absolutely.
and
Keyword being appropriately, but yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
and so putting those characters in there who are okay admitting like, hey, I'm having a hard day.
Mhm.
or I'm suffering from PTSD. I need space, or I need this, this, and this, and people aren't like, just get over it. Like, you,
Mhm.
you, you can't just get over it. First off,
Right.
but addressing all of that.
And
Um,
and and just like you had touched on, that the key to addressing and breaking down the barriers and reservations that we have as a society is tasteful and respectful representation.
mhm,
For many of us, our lives are very much siloed into groups that look like us, sound like us, live near us, have similar beliefs to us, maybe have similar religious backgrounds, and it's a very human thing to want to choose to be around people that are like you. And the key to breaking down every ism out there is meeting people that aren't like you. And a small thing that we can do as creatives is try to respectfully see that people that aren't like us are there for people to interact with.
mhm. And to embrace those people and welcome them into our communities. Um,
Mhm.
I I absolutely love that I've had such a vast range of like people on my show. Um, you know,
Mhm.
old people, young people, people of all races, genders. We've talked about neuro, you know, neurodiversity
Mhm.
with various people on my show. We definitely have plenty of queer people, and I just, you know, I love that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and as
Joe.
zombies go,
I haven't had you on yet. I've got a couple of openings.
yeah. But it's so important, and you even mentioned age, and it's so terribly important to mention that as a community, those who are in their 50s, 60s, or older are so badly marginalized in our gaming communities. If you stop to think about it, how many streams do you see on Twitch that actively have individuals who are senior citizens playing the game? How many?
Think of maybe like five in like the thousands and thousands and thousands
Hmm.
of, yeah.
Yeah, and see that's something that I think that we as communities need to address also, making our spaces accessible for those who have more lived experiences,
Mm-hmm.
so that they feel welcome in our spaces also.
Mm-hmm. And then, a lot of times too, like, not necessarily as, I don't want to say not as marginalized, that's not going to be true. But, a lot of those older people in the community, like, a lot of people sometimes look down on them, um, because there's a generalization that, they're the old guard, the grognards, the we've been doing it since before you were alive, kind of looking down on you crowd. And that's not necessarily true. Of course, there's always going to be the bad apple.
Mhm.
And we need to address the bad apple and toss it out.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then we have absolutely lovely people who have been playing these games since like their inception. People who've been playing D&D in Wisconsin since it was started way back when, with uh, Gary and everyone, and they have valuable contributions still to our
Yeah.
current game community.
They yeah, they are valid and they matter. It's neat because I mean people automatically, yeah, that automatic assumption, oh, they're just grognards, they're grumpy, they hate the new additions, blah blah blah. But you look at folks like you and me who absolutely adore sharing this passion with people younger than us. We love it. And why would we think that individuals who are older than us wouldn't also enjoy the same thing?
Yeah, I definitely have experiences, which are pretty common, where I'll be talking to somebody or whatnot about games, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I did this in whatever," and I'll be like, I was 8 then. That is
Okay.
really cool to think you were doing that when I was 8. And
Hmm.
they're like, "Oh, I thought you were about to call me old," and I'm like, "No, it's really cool to think about, how long this stuff has been going on and all of that. And yeah, we even welcome our friendly undead zombies.
Yeah.
Into um, but yeah, um, well, um, with that, we are kind of near the end of the hour. So
Mhm.
Connor, do you have like any closing thoughts on, I guess, these particular subjects that we've had today, that you want to share with anyone, and then as well, like, um, upcoming projects you've got going on, or projects that you want to work on that the people here should definitely invite you to be involved in, and then where they can find you on social media.
Okay, so emotional themes are good. Share your passion with kids because they're fun. Um, hire cultural consultants. Their opinions matter way more than oftentimes ours do. Um, make sure that you're um, keeping yourself healthy and that you're doing the right things to keep yourself COVID free so that we can all be back together in person sometime soon.
Drink plenty of water,
Um,
get some sleep, take your meds.
and get your shots.
That was meds.
That too, because vaccines are medicine. Um, so
Wear a mask.
wear a mask, please, please, and over your nose and your mouth. I feel weird having to remind 8 to 11-year-olds every day that it doesn't work unless they wear it over their nose and their mouth. And then I see grown-ups doing the same thing. And I'm like, you're grown-ups. The so I mean, those are great reviews, but I'm really excited to contribute in projects that open up new and creative avenues for storytelling. If you are interested in doing a collaboration, I am open to helping you for Dungeons and Dragons, but also awesome games like Star Trek Adventures, Quest, Powered by the Apocalypse, and others. Um, I am interested in perhaps streaming with folks, so I have an open streaming schedule. I try to only have one stream that I'm involved in at a time.
And
Um,
Connor is an excellent guest for any show. He brings so much to the table. You
and
were you
and
were doing a Star Trek stream for a while, weren't you?
I am really hopeful that I will have some good news on a Star Trek stream sometime soon, which allows me to grapple with some of those amazing issues that we were talking about today, such as mental health, which Star Trek is very empowered to handle.
Oh yeah,
Responsibly.
I've been watching Discovery and they do a great job.
They do a wonderful job. The game does. Um, so there's that there, and we have a great project that you and I are working on together. That's coming up here in just a couple months.
Oh yeah, and that everyone here can be involved in.
Absolutely, and we would love it if everybody was.
So
So
what Connor is talking about is what's going to be, I guess, our annual event now. This will be the second annual, and we'll probably keep doing this even after people go back to in-person conventions. It's our May Days 10-day online charity convention. And we did this
mhm,
last year for the first time, and it was a lot of fun. So it'll be April 23rd through May 2nd, online, of course. And between April 23rd and May 2nd, the party don't stop. 24 hours every
mhm,
single day of those days. With the exception of the 23rd and the 2nd. Those have cutoffs on them. Um,
right.
but you can run any game you want. We'll have some suggestions. You can play at any time of night you want, which is a great opportunity to play games with people in other countries, other time zones, and we are using it to raise money for great causes.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that Jenny and I are both very passionate about is raising money for quality local causes. And so Mayday's 10 Day is raising money for a couple great causes, including Second Harvest Food Bank of Eastern Tennessee, which provides meals to thousands of families in Eastern Tennessee, the Knoxville area. Knoxville, Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge.
The whole of Eastern Tennessee, anything off the plateau.
Yeah, which is one of which a lot of people may not know is one of the most impoverished areas in our country. So every dollar that they get does amazing work.
Every
Amazing work,
every dollar is 3 meals.
right? Exactly. We're also raising money this year for Illinois Valley Pads, which is a homeless shelter network. They have a few different shelters, and they house families intact, meaning that they, unlike many other homeless shelters, they don't break up families when they arrive, which is the number one reason why families don't seek the help of homeless shelters, because they know if they go in, they're going to split up the core relationship. Regardless of if it is heterosexual, homosexual, or other, they do not split up those families. They keep them intact, give them a family room, because they found that those families get back on their feet quicker when they have each other to rely on, and the kids that are in that situation do better at school with fewer behavior disruptions as a result. Like, it prevents trauma, it saves lives. And so we raised money for them, and we might have some other things to reveal in the near future. So
Yeah, so we're going to be doing a lot of games there, and we're also going to have some really cool charity auctions
mhm.
and other cool donation rewards and stuff like normal, plus some special guests and stuff. But like I said, we got a little ways till that, so some announcements to come on that. But you can find information on that on the D8 Summit website. That's d8summit.org. Um, and if anybody has any questions about that, you can reach out to Connor or I, and we'll be more than happy to talk about it.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, we love talking about this because it's something that we're both very passionate about, um, and getting these monies to quality local charities that are really stretched for cash, but do the lion's share of the work in our communities.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and we got some great business partnerships, great things to offer those that volunteer their time with us, which I can't say yet, but I'm really excited about. And some other business partnerships that are hopping on board with the charity mission of helping allowing gamers to select and help quality local charities.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, so with that, Connor, where can everyone find you online, besides at the D8 Summit website? You can see Connor's beautiful face on the website. I put it there just recently.
Yeah, it's like a dirt. No, I hate photos. But I do. You can absolutely find me there. I would encourage you to reach out to me. The easiest way to reach out to me, yes, it is bearded. Uh, Thank you. Um, I, uh, I encourage you to reach out to me on Twitter. It's the easiest way to reach out to me. At the Healer DM. I my DMs are open. You can feel free to chat with me there.
Mhm.
And I love meeting. I tend to mutual the people that follow me. You can reach out to me occasionally on podcasts. If you're following me on Twitter, I will talk about different podcasts or streams I'm on. If you are interested in hiring me to run a mental health sensitive game for you on Start Playing Games, you can reach out to me there. Startplaying.games, and if you do a search for DMs and just type in the name Connor, you'll find me. Apparently, I'm the only one.
Yes, that is true.
Um, and uh, and hopefully, like, if you see me in person, like I'm not gonna lie to you. This is the time where I openly say I got my second shot yesterday. I feel terrible right now, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. Um, the Once we are back together in person, come up and say hi. I'm happy to talk. I'm happy to share a beverage, standard or adult, and I'm told I give good hugs for people who like them.
It's
So
true. And you can as always find me also on the Twitter, Jenny Loveday, Facebook, Instagram, my website, all that jazz. You can also, more importantly, especially for anyone who is with Baldwin Games or interested in happenings about Baldwin Games, you can find me again on this exact same channel tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we are going to be doing the monthly Baldwin Games update, Baldwin HQ. and we're going to be having a very special edition this month. We're doing our yearly Herald's Guild announcements. So we're going to be promoting some people from level 3 to level 4 judge. We're going to be doing our DM of the Year award. We're going to be doing our lifetime achievement. And Dave's just going to be talking to the general assembled of Herald's Guild about how wonderful everyone has been this past year. So if you want to find out a little bit about our organization and who we are and who some of our people are, and especially who some really excellent DMs are that are being promoted and or bestowed upon these great honors, that'll be a great time to tune in. We're also going to talk a little bit, have Matt Lane on to talk about our Learn to Play program and his joy at interacting with new players, which is very similar to the joy Connor and I have, honestly. But that is that tonight, and you can look forward to, in the upcoming weeks, some wonderful guests here. We're gonna have RP Davis, Matthew Whitby, Richard Molina, Bo Sheldon, Andy Dimps, and Alex Clippinger. I already have lined up, and I might squeeze Zombie Joe in. I don't know what his schedule looks like, so we'll have to see. But if you are ever interested in being on the show and you've designed something, you can always reach out to me via any of these things, and I'll be happy to talk to you. Love to get these, wide range of voices as we've kind of gone through on this. But with that, that is going to be it for this episode of The Designer's Den. So until next time for this, but until later tonight, really. Bye, everyone.